Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Reifman. I'm a National Board Certified Elementary Classroom Teacher and author in Santa Monica, California. EPEW is my favorite week of the year, and I'm so glad that you are joining us for this year's workshop. This is my 27th time attending the EPEW workshop, and I'm hoping that we can all be together in person next year. Throughout my teaching career, I've worked to develop a whole child teaching approach that seeks to empower students and emphasizes academic achievement, lasting habits of mind and habits of character, important work habits and social skills, and health and wellness. So for today's session, I'm going to pick ideas from a teacher book that came out last year, spring of 2020, called 107 Awesome Elementary Teaching Ideas You Can Implement Tomorrow. My goal in this session was to pick the ideas that I felt would be the most applicable for physical educators. So I hope that you find this session useful. And if you ever have any questions or want to continue the conversation, or you're seeking resources about any of the ideas that I present, feel free to contact me at the email address below. A couple of years ago, and for 2 years, I attended the ISTE National Technology Conference, and my favorite type of session there was something called Ignite, where there were two podiums set up on stage, and every few minutes, new people would come out, and each person had a few minutes to share their best idea. So if you're sitting in a 1 hour session, you're hearing the best idea from a lot of people, so you get great bang from your buck. You walk out of there with a lot of useful information. And if one idea happened not to be your cup of tea, then you knew you only had a couple minutes to go before you were getting the next one. So I love the fast-paced aspect of the Ignite sessions. So my intention today is to do a one-person Ignite session presenting a series of ideas, one right after the other, one right after the other. Now, I usually speak very slowly and methodically, but today I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit to fit the spirit of the session. And if you ever want to spend more time on any idea, you're more than welcome to pause as we go. So idea number one, lead by example. When I was a student at UCLA in the graduate teacher education program, one of my professors made the point that no matter what any of us would go on to teach, whatever subject area anybody would teach, we would all make the most powerful impact on our students with the example that we set. And the kids may not remember all the content from our class, but they will remember us. And this doesn't mean that as teachers we put pressure on ourselves to be perfect, but it does mean that we want to walk our talk and set the most powerful example possible. So if you want to create an environment of honesty, what is the best way to do that? Is it to set a rule that everybody needs to be honest? No, it's to be a living example of that. Make and keep promises. How do we promote kindness? By saying please and thank you and using a nice tone of voice when we speak. So no matter what we teach, we want to be sure that we remember that first and foremost, we are an example and we want to lead that way with our students. Number two, think starters. Imagine a student of mine named Randy turns in a piece of paper without his name at the top. And I say, Randy, put your name at the top of the paper. He'll do it, but there's no reason to expect him to remember to do it next time. By telling him, I don't increase his capacity in any way. But if I say, Randy, what do you need to do before turning in your paper? He'll say, oh, I need to put my name on it. So by doing that, by asking instead of telling, we build students' future capacity to develop any habit or follow any procedure that we have in our classrooms. Number three, circulate and encourage. When you Google the term students raising their hand in a classroom, you'll get pictures where all or almost all students are raising their hand. But in reality, it usually doesn't work that way. Whenever teachers ask a question, there'll be some kids who almost always or always do raise their hands. Some kids will raise their hands occasionally, and then there'll be some kids who don't raise their hands at all. So one way to encourage kids to participate more frequently without putting pressure on them or without adding stress is to pose a question to the group and give everybody at least 20 seconds of think time so that everybody has a chance to gather their thoughts. Then they can do a pair share and express their ideas with a partner. While they're doing their pair share, it's great for the teachers to walk around and listen in on the kids' conversations. And if you notice that any of the quieter students comes up with a really nice idea, you can stop them and say, you know what, that's a really great idea. I'd like you to share it with the class. That way, when we come back together for the whole class conversation and I call on that student first, they already know it's coming, so there's no surprise, and they know that their idea has already been validated by the teacher, so they're confident in presenting it. So by setting the kids up to participate by eavesdropping or listening in on their conversations, then we increase the likelihood that they will be more likely to participate in the future. Another strategy that I used a lot this year with the distance learning in breakout rooms is something called volunteers and nominations. After the kids have had a chance to think of a response to a prompt or an answer to a question, they talk with a partner. When we come back from the breakout rooms, I'll ask if anybody wants to volunteer to speak or if anybody wants to nominate their partner. And when somebody gets nominated, it's great for their self-esteem. So because the teacher can't be listening in on as many conversations on Zoom as they can in person, we put the responsibility for the nominations on the peers. So once somebody's been nominated, they know that their partner likes their idea. So when they speak, they do so with confidence, and like with Circulate and Encourage, the kids are more likely to participate in the future. So these two suggestions go hand in hand to increase participation in our class discussions. Number 4 is one of my very favorite ideas, and I think it's particularly applicable for physical education. The quote you see on the side is said by legendary PE instructor Rudy Benton, who's presented at EPEW many, many times. I love quotes, and I make the point to my students when we do our quote of the day discussions 2 or 3 times a week, that a quote isn't right, it isn't wrong. It's simply what one person has said, and from that, there's the opportunity to learn important lessons. Now, I've been on the lookout for years for quotes about different habits of character, as I like to call them. So every time we have a discussion in the morning, there's always a positive tone to the dialogue. It brings out the best in us, and it sets us up for a great day. Many times in classes when teachers talk about behavior with kids, it's usually after somebody got caught doing something wrong, and not surprisingly, kids don't want to participate in those discussions because they feel like they're being put on the spot. But if we do these types of discussions in the morning and they're empowering and they're boosting our spirits, they can have great effects throughout the day and beyond. So after collecting quotes for many, many years, I put them all into a book, and I'm more than happy to email a sampling of quotes if anybody is interested. But I think starting any class or ending a class with a quote, it gives the kids the opportunity to make connections, to interpret the quote, and to give examples either from their lives or from the lives of others, and those lessons can be lasting. Number 5 was inspired by an indie band called the Beths. They had a song a couple years ago called Future Me Hates Me, and it inspired me to create a video. This is the first time I've ever done a video like this, where there's a story told through a series of very primitive line drawings. And if you know anything about my drawing skills, you know that they definitely are primitive. What the story tells in just a few minutes, it explains to kids how what they do in school at young ages helps prepare them for the future, the specific skills and habits they develop, and how they pay off for us. So if you go to YouTube and you type in my name and you type in you and future you can watch the video, and hopefully it's something that you think would benefit your students from either showing them a class or sending home the link and they can watch it with their parents. I mentioned that a big emphasis of my teaching is habits of mind and habits of character. Over the years, I found that certain ideas are particularly powerful in helping kids be better students. So I've combined what I consider the 5 most impactful ideas into something called the Drive for 5, because the first letter of each of the 5 can spell out the word drive. It's an acronym, and kids like that because drive is a very active word and it embodies the type of active approach that we want our students to have in their learning. So if you go on Pinterest, and again, type my name, you'll see the visual for the acronym that I'm showing you here. But then there are also visuals for each of the 5, and it's incredibly beneficial to read through them with the kids, ask them to reflect on which ones they think they're doing well, which ones they might want to set a goal in, and have that guide the discussion for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in class. I have all the visuals up on the wall, and I try to refer to them frequently because I find that when the kids commit to developing these ideas, it makes an incredible difference in their motivation and in their performance and productivity as a student. Number 7, if you watch a football game or most sports events, before the game actually starts, the announcers will talk about each team's key to victory. What are the things that a team needs to do to be successful? So I've taken that idea, and when the kids do important assessments or any other work, when they put their name and date at the top, I also give them a chance to come up with their own key to victory and either write it or draw it at the top of the paper. You'll see on this side the defense sign that I purchased a few years ago. That's become a class symbol. It represents that on defense, in order to be successful, you've got to do the dirty work. You got to do the nitty gritty that helps your team stop the offense. It's not glamorous. It's not always going to get on SportsCenter or be in the newspapers, but it's what it takes to be successful. So this defense sign that's on the front wall of my classroom has become an important symbol for being willing to do the nitty gritty. The things that aren't glamorous, they're not always fun, but we do them because they're important. So many kids like to draw. That is their key to victory, but most of them come up with their own that they use throughout the year. It's a great way to promote metacognition, so the kids are thinking about their thinking, and it's a great way to help them know themselves better as learners so they know what exactly they need to do before being successful. There's one student a few years ago who didn't always get the highest scores on math assessments. She didn't work methodically enough. There were a lot of careless mistakes. So she came up with a key to victory that helped her focus more on the details, and it did lead to higher scores. I'm not saying that alone did it, but it was certainly an important part of the effort to help her become a better student who knew herself well and perform better as the year went on. So it's important to give kids the chance to come up with their own keys to victory. Now, number 8 is not a 1 to 2 minute teaching tip that you can just implement once and move on. This is more of a philosophical item. With intrinsic motivation, we want to encourage the kids to do their very best in school, not because they're getting a prize, not because they're getting a sticker or a reward, because there are powerful, what's the best way to say it? There are ways that those can be damaging to the things that we're trying to promote in class. They can even be destructive. So if we're trying to promote responsibility and enthusiasm and initiative and teamwork, if we give extrinsic rewards, that can actually counteract all the great things that we're trying to promote. So when we promote an intrinsic approach, so the kids are doing things because it's meaningful to them. They care about it. It's interesting. They value the learning opportunity and all the things you see on the slide. It can transform a classroom environment because the kids are doing what they're doing for intrinsic reasons. Those tend to be far more lasting and lead to far better work than they would do in an environment governed by extrinsic rewards or extrinsic motivation. This is one where if you're interested in more information, I can send you some resources because this topic could easily fill an entire workshop on its own, and there's just no way to do it full justice in a couple minutes. But I definitely wanted to point it out there because it can have such an amazing effect on a classroom environment. Now, the next idea I think is the most powerful for physical educators, and I'm very excited to share it. The first thing that my students and I do during our first full week of school is write something called our class mission statement. It's our formal statement of purpose. And I've learned over the years that it's the most powerful move a teacher can make to establish a sense of purpose in the classroom, build an expectation level, establish teamwork, and begin to develop habits of mind and habits of character. Now, that takes 4 days. It's a full-on process, and I know that it's easier for me to do it because I have one group of students for the full day. And with physical educators, there's just no way to do it the same way when you have so many groups of kids and your time is so limited. So one way that I think you can get similar results without needing to invest as much time is to make a class mission statement visual. So what you're seeing on the slide are the visuals that my students and I have developed for the last 3 years. So starting at the top left, it's a very simple drawing that conveys our class mission. The idea that we're all trying to work to the next level. You see kids going up the staircase. The lightning bolt stands for the energy and the passion and enthusiasm that we're trying to develop. The sun shows that each morning is a new day, and no matter what happened the day before, we can always take advantage of the day to get the most learning out of it. You see the battery at the top. That stands for being a battery charger. We want to fill the room with positive energy and have a positive effect on our classmates. And the way that I would suggest doing this is either to start brainstorming all at once. You can do little by little, either with an individual class, with a grade level, perhaps the whole school, perhaps each class can contribute part of the visual so that you have one visual that can serve as a reference point to the whole school. So this could be done simply by giving kids the chance to answer some very basic yet profound questions, such as who are we? What are we determined to accomplish this year? Like, how do we need to treat each other? Like, what do our actions, what type of actions do we need to show in class? And again, if you email me, I can send you like specific sheets with questions that you can ask your kids. But I think with a minimum investment of time, you can ask the right questions that help kids understand why they're in school, what the main priorities are that you have for them and that your school has for the kids as well. And by doing it in a visual, again, either all at once or just adding a different layer over the first few days or first few weeks of class, you can create something special. You can create a reference point that you keep coming back to. And I spoke in the last slide about the limits and the dangers of extrinsic rewards. Those don't hold a class together. Those don't lead a class anywhere. But if you have a visual created by the kids themselves with ideas that they commit to, then it's everybody working together as a team, and you've found something that I just consider absolute gold. I tell the kids it's the single most important thing we do in our class all year, and we review it once a week, and we talk about what's going well, what is not going well, and we use it to guide us throughout the year in a very positive way. Next, anytime you have a few minutes, either before class or at the end of class, recognitions are a great thing to do, where kids will share either the excellent content skills that the kids are displaying or excellent character, kindness, responsibility, respect that their kids are showing. Even if you have 1 minute at the end of class and you put out the question, does anybody want to recognize anybody else? You'll have kids raising their hand and say, I want to recognize so-and-so for being a great partner, or for showing great sportsmanship, or for showing respect during the game. They were winning by a lot, but they were still cool to me. They did not. They were always a great sport and a great person to play with. Now, currently at my school, I do not have any involvement in physical education. As a classroom teacher, I teach math, reading, writing, science, social studies, and the kids go out with aides who take the kids to PE. And I've noticed that if kids are ill and can't participate, that they often sit way off to the side and they're not even a part of the physical group. And I've always thought that that's not a good idea. So if this is not something you already do, I strongly encourage you to have the kids who aren't able to participate on a given day, keep a clipboard and they walk around during PE, or they just sit and watch and listen, and they take notes about whatever it is you want them to pay attention to. You could ask them to pay attention to the kind words that people are saying about respect that the kids are showing. Then at the end of class, they can read off what they wrote down. That has a powerful effect on the kids' future actions when we share recognitions of any kind. Plus, it gives the kids a valuable role to play if they're not able to participate physically in the class. Nod to Nick Klein here, PE teacher extraordinaire. A couple years ago at EPEW, he did a session involving Tabata. So I took that and created something called Tabata Tuesday in class, where the kids were first asked one evening for homework to come up with one exercise that they would like to include in our new morning warm-up that was going to start, and then make a Flipgrid video demonstrating that movement. So the next day, we watched all of the movements and we made a list, and that's the list you see on the slide. And then every Tuesday, using the Tabata app on my phone, we do a 4-minute warm-up with 8 30-second cycles. That's what a Tabata is. 20 seconds of exercise, 10 seconds of rest. So each week, we'll pick 2 of the movements. Usually there's one that's more horizontal and then one that's more vertical, and we'll rotate back and forth. So round 1, we'll do the horizontal one, we'll take a break, then we'll do the vertical, and then we'll repeat that to do our Tabata. And the kids are way more invested when they've created the movements than if I were simply to have presented the movements to them. So if you have any classroom teachers who are looking to have a morning movement warm-up the way I've described it, then Tabata Tuesday is a really great way to do that. because it takes just a few minutes. It's very structured, and the kids have an opportunity to take ownership of it. 12. This is the first of 3 ideas I'm about to present that combine academic learning with movement, and that's been an important focus of mine for the last few years. This one is called Macarena Thursday, and the idea was created by Jeff Habig, who presented at EPEW, probably 15 years ago. He pointed out that the Macarena dance has 12 steps, and the columns of numbers that you see invite the kids to skip count by certain numbers, and there's 12 multiples. So if we look on the left with the 3s, we have the Macarena music playing, and the kids are saying one number as they do each part of the Macarena. So they're saying 3 as they put one arm out, 6 as they put the other arm out, 9 as they turn the first arm over, 12 as they turn the second arm over. You get the idea. So the fact that they're saying the numbers, they're hearing it, they're moving it, saying, sing, moving. There's one more here that I'm forgetting, but they're saying, sing, hearing, and moving. There we go. That is what I call the educational grand slam. That's why you see a picture of Gavin Lux at the bottom. He's at 2 this year. Bright spot for an otherwise somewhat disappointing Dodger start to the season. So on Macarena Thursday, when you play the song, there's enough to go through about 8 columns of numbers. So the kids are learning their skip counting in a way that's fun, in a way that involves music. And when I first saw Jeff Habig present it, I just thought this is one of the best things that I've ever seen at a conference, and I've done it every year since. And the kids' performance with their mastery of the math facts has gone up tremendously with that. Okay, the next academic movement connection is place value hopscotch. This comes from a project that I did called Rocket. The idea is very simple. On a hopscotch court, you help the kids learn the place value names by writing each one in one of the squares. And as they're jumping through the hopscotch court, they're saying the names out loud. And by moving through it, it helps them remember them in a way that just looking at it and saying it to yourself over and over would not. Anytime we add movement, it's great because movement is a fantastic learning catalyst. I have the kids jump through multiple times per day for a period of days during our place value unit, and that usually helps them understand the names of the place value positions. The size of the court can be changed depending on how many place value positions you or a classroom teacher might want the kids to learn. And in the classroom, if classroom teachers want to do this, they can either make courts with string, they can use sidewalk chalk if they want to go outside. But what I've done in recent years, just to make it really easy, is to put this visual of the hopscotch courts on the board, and then the kids spread out throughout the room, and then they just imagine a virtual court in front of them, and that does the job. There's never been anybody who's been confused by it. So that saves a lot of time and still allows the kids to participate in place value hopscotch. Along with this one comes place value jumping jacks. Whereas place value hopscotch helps the kids learn the names of the position, this helps the kids learn the meaning. So what I have the kids do is stand in class with enough room where they can jump to the left. So we imagine that we are actually numbers in this list of numbers. So we start in the ones place, and we do 10 jumping jacks. And as we do that, we count from 1 to 9. When we get to 9, we stop for a second because before we move to the tens place, we give ourselves a very tight hug, simulating the 10 sticks coming together to form a group of 10, which is how many kids learn it in the classroom. The teachers have sticks. They put the 10 sticks in a rubber band and then move it into the tens place. So here the kids give themselves the hug, and then together as a group, we jump together from the ones place to the tens place. Then we do our jumping jacks again. This time we're counting by tens. And then when we get to 100, we give ourselves a little bigger hug because now we have 100 popsicle sticks instead of 10. We hop to the left, and then we continue. We do jumping jacks until 1,000, even bigger hug, hop into the thousands place. So by doing the jumping jacks and doing the counting and then physically moving from the ones place all the way to whatever stopping point you want, it helps the kids understand what each place means. And again, I'll do this for a couple minutes at the beginning of a math period during our place value unit for a period of days, and it really helps the kids learn both their place value names and their place value positions. Number 15 is about symbols. I think it's important to develop symbols that have important meaning for the kids in a classroom. I've already shown you the defense sign as one symbol. The next one is the challenge bear. The only one this picture is missing is the sash going like you would see in a beauty pageant from one shoulder to the opposite waist. The sash would say challenge, and this represents our class emphasis on embracing challenges. Sometimes kids don't want to do hard things. They don't think they can. They're a little intimidated by them. We want to have the attitude of embracing challenges. We like doing things because they're hard. We love the opportunity that they give us to stretch and grow. And if we make a mistake, great. Mistakes are valuable learning opportunities that we can use. So it's all about having a positive mindset of challenge and of making mistakes and learning from them. So the challenge bear is always in the front of the room, and I tell the kids that anytime they're about to embark on a challenge and they're feeling a little bit nervous, they're more than welcome to come up and give the challenge bear a little embrace to show that they're ready to embrace a challenge. Now, with our COVID protocols, we probably don't want all the kids embracing the same challenge bear, so they can do an air embrace from maybe a couple feet away. But the idea is still the same, that this is a symbol that helps the kids embrace challenges. The kids laugh, there's a lighthearted tone to it, but it definitely is effective. And then in the corner, you see the 31st student flag that we had in our classroom, modeled after the 12th man flag that the Seattle Seahawks have. Their fans are such an important part of the team. It's almost like they have another player on the field. We had 30 students in the class that year. The 31st student represented important ideas that became such an important part of our teaching and learning that it was almost like having another student in the class. I can give you more information about that if you're interested. Idea 16 comes from Sean Acor, who gave a TED Talk many years ago about the importance of appreciation and gratitude. He said in our country there's the belief that if you work hard, you'll be happier. He thinks it should be the other way around, where if you're happy, you will naturally do better work. And he said that one of the best ways for people to become happier is to realize all the things that they are grateful for in their life. So after watching that, I've had my students do what's called the Happiness Project. Acor claims that if students come up with, or people in general, not just students in school, come up with 3 things per day that they are grateful for, and they do that for 21 consecutive days without repeating any, that is 3 per day, 21 days. That's over 60 things that we're grateful for. By doing that, that naturally makes us happier because we realize that we have a lot of great things going on in our lives. So in class, we do it for 3 school weeks. So it's 15 days. The kids come up with 3 gratitudes per day. They're very eager to share them after I give them time to do that. And then over time, I've noticed that kids who might have a tendency to complain about things or not always look at the bright side, doesn't solve that completely, but it definitely makes an impact on the kids' overall attitude and perspective. So anytime we can encourage kids to think about the things they're grateful for in their life, it has a great effect on themselves as individuals and also on the classroom environment. Whether it's in that 3-week structure or whether it's done more informally, I encourage you in any way you can to encourage building more gratitudes into the classroom environment. By the way, the hookup position that you're seeing in number 17 is the position that the kids are in at the end of our morning warm-up. That's when I have them come up with their 3 gratitudes per day during our happiness project. I also have the kids use that time on a daily basis to come up with an informal goal. Now, sometimes we want the kids to participate in a more formal goal-setting process, write them down, involve the parents. This is more of an informal daily goal where I want the kids to plant a positive seed in their mind, and I encourage them to pick a goal that will make the greatest difference for them in their day. And I ask them not to pick things that are easy for them, because if it's something that's already easy for you, then it's not worth setting a goal in it. We want to pick the things that are the most challenging, and that's tricky for a lot of kids because I think there's a human tendency to want to avoid things that are hard for us, but that's how we grow. We want to be very honest. What is the number one thing that if I do a great job in it today, I'm going to have a great day? Is it making sure that I'm paying close attention during lessons? Is it being a self-starter? Is it being cooperative with my partner? Is it making sure that I stay hydrated? What is it? We want these to be quote unquote whole child goals. Certainly they can be academic, but they can also have to do with behavior, health, wellness, interactions with their peers. And I usually don't have the kids share them out loud, but at the end of this past year, I did have about 4 or 5 kids per day share their goals, and more kids would raise their hand every day to do it. It became a thing in our class, and by having them share out loud, it allowed us to follow up throughout the day to see how it was going, and I think it increased the power of the goal, because I've also read that if you ever share a goal with somebody, you're more likely to want to reach it because you've kind of put it out there and you want to live up to that. So anytime we can encourage formal and informal goal setting, that is a good thing. Here's our 18th and final idea. It's inspired by a man named W. Edwards Deming, who has had the greatest impact on my teaching career. I was lucky enough to learn of his work during my first year of teaching. Now, he worked in industry and focused on quality. He's most well known for his work after World War II in Japan, helping Japanese factory owners improve the quality of their goods right after the industrial base of Japan had been destroyed in the war. Now, even though he wrote for an audience of business leaders, I read his stuff and I felt like he was talking to me. I would underline everything on every page for stretches of his books because he wasn't talking about business principles. He was talking about quality principles, and I felt that he was talking to me. So one tool that he shared is something called a plus delta chart. This is a great, simple tool to use anytime you do an activity for the first time with the kids, and you might do it again, and you want to see how it goes. It's a nice chance to reflect, and it also builds ownership in the class because the kids know that you value their opinion. So on the plus side, we all have a chance to write down what we liked about what we just did, what we thought went well. Now, the example you're seeing occurred after my students and I participated in student-led conferences where they created a portfolio to share their learning with their families. And I was in the room, but I was not part of the meeting. So we listed 6 things that we felt went well with our conference. And then the right side is not negative. Many times kids see positive and they think that the right side has to be what didn't work or was bad. But we want to phrase it positively. So by phrasing it as the change side, we write down things that we would do differently next time. And then we make an effort to do that the second time we do that activity because we're going to make it better and because it sends the message that we value the feedback that our kids are sharing. So the plus delta chart is a great way to collect feedback from our students and put it to use in the future. That is the end of the presentation. I hope you found it useful. Again, please let me know if I could be of any help in any way, and I wish you a great rest of the workshop.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Groton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.